Alright, down to business. Definitely down to business. Here we go. This is like take 6 of this crap. You know, it's getting kind of hysterical at this point. No, I'm just kidding. Alright, I finally got up the nerve. I tore down the Palm Pre. And really I should stop these stupid bubbles because they're in the way. But I'm not. I'm not going to. Alright, the first thing I had to take off is the back plate. And it's the kind that's ready for the touchstone. You see the little circular ring in the center there? Alright, that had to come off. Then, I'm going to try to do this in order. Then the battery had to come out. I hope y'all know how to do that, because if you don't know how to do that, you don't need to be screwing around with this. Alright, then the inner back plate, what I call C3PO. C3PO had to come out of there. Okay, based on what I've read, I think that gold C3PO looking stuff there, I think that, you know, that indicates where the physical 3D antenna array is. And then one of these little cables says GPS on it and the other one says div. I think I got that dyslexified there. But that connects to, that snaps right onto this area that is underneath this little bit of aluminum shielding here. It takes nothing to pry this up. You know, you're not going to damage the phone by prying that up. Underneath that are your 2 contacts where those 2 wires snap on. Okay. One of the next things you got to do is you got to, well, I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. You got to get 6 screws out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you got to have a special screwdriver to do it. You got to have a star-tipped T5 sized screwdriver. I had a computer repair kit. It went all the way down to a T8, but it didn't go down to a T5, so I had to go out and buy a whole darn set of screwdrivers with all these crazy tips just to get the right one at Wally World. But it was only $8. How can you beat that? You go to Sears and get you some Craftsman stuff and you're looking at $50 for the same thing. Maybe that's an exaggeration. But anyway, yeah, one cool thing about this cheap screwdriver is it has a cap on the end that screws off, and I stored my little screws inside of it. Yep, so they don't lose them, tiny little screws. This other little piece in there is the volume rocker. Had to pop it out. Now I gotta say something about what lied beneath the volume rocker. This little screwdriver thing, it's got lots of threads on it, man, so it screws on securely. That's great. Alright, what was underneath the volume rocker is a little tricky bit, and even though I got this tiny screwdriver, it proved to not be tiny enough. I thought I was going to wreck something, so I had to get out the really dangerous hardware, the Spyderco, because this has got a really fine tip, and I had to pry the electronics loose, the ribbon cable that's underneath the volume rocker. That ribbon cable has contacts on it, and that's actually your volume control. Anyway, it's a ribbon cable going into a board. Please don't get too, please don't get too aggressive and try to pry this out prematurely. Otherwise, if you're too aggressive, you'll end up bending this board permanently, like I did. I don't think this is going to affect the performance of the phone. I don't think it's going to hurt it. But if I were to have gone any further with it, I think I would have caused some irreparable damage. Okay, what else do I need to say? I need to say that around the speaker, when you start prying this back plate off, the inner back plate off, you need to start at the speakerphone jack, and there's a formed piece of soundproofing here. It's kind of like, it's a little bit reminiscent of some silicone, but it's got a rectangular angles to it, 90-degree angles to it here, and it seals off that speaker chamber there. I guess it keeps it from buzzing or rattling or whatever. But that's sticky there, so you got to pry that loose and you'll feel some resistance, but it'll pop right off. And then you got the really tricky parts, the really tricky parts, which are the tabs along the edges. It's hard to get up the nerve to really go to prying on those tabs, and I recommend that you just really take your time so that you don't break something. The ones near that are along the same latitude as the USB port on either side, they're the hardest. Then down toward the bottom it gets a bit easier. Then the bezel around the keyboard is slightly tricky getting it out, because I think there's some adhesive right underneath the touchscreen there that kind of holds it into place. Plus there's some there are hooks on the bottom edge of the bezel that hook into the mat that makes up the keyboard. They hook in and they lock, so you have to kind of wiggle it back and forth until you get it to release without actually having to tear it up. And the whole reason for taking this loose, it was to fix the keyboard, to make it where I wouldn't have any because I was having this really aggravating issue with I am having an aggravating issue with keys that stick and keys that don't register when you click them. And I read somewhere that if you were to tear up the mat, see underneath there's little white rectangles, that's what's actually underneath the physical clicky keys here. These are clicky keys that are attached to a black mat, and then they have that white squares underbelly, and then there's a white mat underneath that I think is going to have to come up, and there's a metal plate under that that's going to have to be washed. And the reason why it's going to have to be washed is because, based on my reading, when Palm made the Pre Pluses for Verizon, they failed to cook off a residue that was on that metal plate, and so I'm going to wash that off hopefully. And that did not happen with the Sprints, with the on the Palm Pre Pluses that were carried by Sprint, or the ones that were carried by AT&T. It's just it's supposed to be a Verizon only issue. So I'm hoping to clean off that metal plate underneath those two layers there, and then I'll no longer have missing keys that don't register. The S keys are real. It hardly ever registers on the first press. And sometimes keys get stuck and they just hold themselves down. They just keep on going across the screen, and and as the phone got older, this phone's like a year and 3 months old now. As the phone got older and older, this problem got worse and worse. But the problem has always been there, even when it was brand new. And I like this keyboard pretty well, but it had those drawbacks the whole time, and they just got worse. Alright, before I conclude the video, I'm going to mention the thing that I'm probably not going to be able to fix. That's to do with this Palm Pre. I use it as a computer. The screen was on 8 hours a day. Sometimes I'd be trying to beam the signal through an aluminum wrapped trailer, which was impossible. We ended up getting a wireless router, but it was probably too late. I was having a lot of overheating issues. When I was outside, I got great Verizon 3G coverage, but all that overheating, I think, ruined this part of the touchscreen, because it no longer works in the lower left quadrant at all, and it barely works at all up this left side, and it's slowly failing up that left side. Slowly but surely it's going to fail. And I think what we need to focus on here, those who are interested, is what hardware lies directly beneath that lower left quadrant of the screen. Whatever is right here, if you're facing the back of the Palm Pre, it'll be the lower right corner of the hardware. Whatever's in there is overheating like crazy, especially when I have poor coverage. If I'm indoors with a tin or aluminum roof, the phone gets really hot, and I think it mostly gets really hot right there. So let's find out I'll post in the notes, in the YouTube notes later on, if I find out what's beneath that. And if I've been paying attention to all the stuff I've been reading, I could already tell you what's beneath that. So my 10 minutes are up, and I hope this was somewhat useful.